First contact and cultural shock. The holographic display flickered in the dimly lit conference room aboard the International Space Station's diplomatic wing. Ambassador Thera Winters stood before the assembled delegation of the Crystalline Collective, their translucent bodies refracting the light into dancing patterns across the walls. She had prepared extensively for this moment, but nothing could have readied her for their reaction to Earth's wildlife documentary. Your planet harbors autonomous killing machines. The lead delegate, Superior Nexus VYX, vibrated at a frequency that made the observation window hum. Their crystalline structure shifted from a calm blue to an alarming shade of crimson. Winters maintained her diplomatic composure, though she couldn't help but smile. Those are simply lions, Superior Nexus. They're part of Earth's natural ecosystem. Every creature plays a vital role in maintaining the balance of balance. Another delegate, Junior Nexus Zora, chimed in with a harmonic resonance that suggested deep distress. That creature just severed another being's spinal column with its dental apparatus. The documentary playing behind them showed a pride of lions taking down a wildebeest. Winters quickly dimmed the display, but the damage was done. The crystalline delegation huddled together, their bodies synchronizing into a defensive formation that resembled a geodesic dome. Perhaps we should take a break, Winters suggested, reaching for the environmental controls to adjust the room's temperature. The crystallines were sensitive to thermal variations, and she worried their agitation might cause overheating. A break cannot erase what we have witnessed, Superior Nexus VYX declared. How do your people survive in such conditions? Are humans equipped with advanced defensive capabilities you have not disclosed? Winters bit back a laugh. No, we've simply evolved alongside these creatures. Humans have developed tools, technology, and intelligence too. The documentary chose that moment to switch to its segment on Wolverines. The small but fierce predator appeared on screen, tenaciously defending its territory against a much larger bear. The crystalline delegation's collective gasp created a harmonic resonance that made the station's warning systems activate. That diminutive entity challenged a creature 5 times its mass. Junior Nexus Zora's voice modulator crackled with disbelief. And your species shares planetary surface space with these beings? Well, yes, Winters replied, quickly shutting off the display before they could see the Wolverine's successful defense. But we have cities, protected areas, and most importantly, we understand and respect wildlife. These creatures aren't mindless killing machines, they're essential parts of our world's biodiversity. The delegation conferred in their native language, a symphony of crystalline chimes that made Winters' teeth ache. After what felt like an eternity, Superior Nexus VYX turned to address her. Ambassador Winters, we must revise our initial assessment of humanity, they announced formally. Our preliminary scans suggested your species achieved spaceflight through purely technological means. We now suspect you possess capabilities beyond our understanding. Winters frowned. I'm not sure I follow. To evolve on a world populated by such aggressive fauna, your species must have developed extraordinary attributes, VYX continued. The Crystalline Collective cannot proceed with standard diplomatic protocols until we better understand how humans have achieved dominance over these biological weapons. Biological weapons? Winters stammered. No, you misunderstand. These are natural. We request permission to observe your wildlife containment protocols firsthand, VYX announced. The collective must understand how humans maintain control over these entities before we can establish proper diplomatic relations. As Winters struggled to formulate a response, the documentary's autoplay feature activated, beginning a new segment about honey badgers. The resulting crystalline panic nearly shorted out the station's electrical systems. Looking at the chaos unfolding before her, Winters realized this first contact situation had taken an unexpected turn. How could she explain to a species that evolved on a world without predators that Earth's wildlife wasn't a carefully curated arsenal of biological weapons? More importantly, how could she prevent an interstellar diplomatic incident triggered by a honey badger? She had a feeling the next few weeks would either make or break humanity's relationship with the crystalline collective. And somewhere in the wilderness below, blissfully unaware of their role in interstellar politics, Earth's predators went about their business, inadvertently shaping humanity's first steps into the galactic community. The Observation Mission. The Yellowstone National Park Ranger Station buzzed with unprecedented activity at dawn. Chief Ranger Marcus Rodriguez stared at the collection of clearance badges spread across his desk, each bearing increasingly absurd security classifications he'd never seen before. The morning briefing was about to begin, and he still hadn't figured out how to explain to his team that they'd be hosting a delegation of crystalline aliens who thought Earth's wildlife was a carefully curated arsenal of biological weapons. "Tell me again why we can't just take them to a petting zoo?" Rodriguez asked Ambassador Winters, who was busy reviewing safety protocols on her tablet. The Crystalline Collective specifically requested to observe Earth's apex predators in their natural habitat, Winters replied, not looking up. "They believe we're hiding something about how we control these biological weapons. Taking them to pet sheep won't convince them we're not a warrior race with secret powers over nature." Rodriguez pinched the bridge of his nose. "And you're sure we can't just tell them the truth? That we're just really good at staying away from things that want to eat us?" "I tried. They think that's even more suspicious." Winters finally looked up, dark circles under her eyes suggesting she'd been dealing with crystalline panic attacks all night. "They're convinced our casual attitude about living alongside predators means we're either supernatural beings or the galaxy's most accomplished warriors. I'm not sure which assumption is worse for diplomatic relations." The station's door swung open, admitting Park Ranger Jessie Thompson, her uniform pristine despite the early hour. "The observation vehicle modifications are complete," she announced, dropping a thick manual on Rodriguez's desk. "Though I still think declaring our standard-issue Toyota a classified military-grade exploration vessel might be stretching the truth a bit." "It's not stretching the truth if they believe it," Winters replied with a wan smile. "Besides, after they insisted on reinforcing it with their own protective crystalline matrix, it probably does qualify as military-grade now." Rodriguez flipped through the manual, eyebrows rising. "They added an atmospheric shield. For a drive through Yellowstone. They're concerned about airborne predators," Winters explained. "Apparently, the concept of birds has thoroughly traumatized them. The delegate who saw an eagle catch a fish yesterday had to be placed in emergency stasis." A series of musical chimes from outside announced the arrival of the crystalline delegation. Through the station's windows, Rodriguez watched as 6 crystalline figures, each encased in what appeared to be walking tanks made of transparent mineral, made their way toward the building. Their protective suits caught the morning sun, creating a disco ball effect that had several junior rangers reaching for their sunglasses. "Remember," Winters said quickly, "no sudden movements, no mentions of the food chain, and absolutely no references to any Discovery Channel documentaries. We're just going for a nice, peaceful drive through the park to observe Earth's wildlife from a safe distance." "And if we encounter any actual predators?" Thompson asked. "Then we pray they don't do anything that makes our guests think we've deployed them as tactical units," Winters replied, straightening her jacket and heading for the door. The briefing room fell silent as the crystalline delegation entered, their protective suits barely fitting through the doorway. Superior Nexus VYX's crystalline form shifted through several colors before settling on a cautious blue. "We have completed our preliminary atmospheric analysis," VYX announced, their voice modulator making the coffee cups on the desk vibrate. "Your planet's oxygen levels remain terrifyingly high, but our protective measures should prevent spontaneous crystalline combustion." "That's good to hear," Rodriguez managed, trying not to think about what their research into Earth's atmosphere must have looked like. "We've prepared a safe observation route that will give you a comprehensive view of Yellowstone's ecosystem." "And your biological weapon containment protocols?" Junior Nexus Zora chimed in, literally chimed, their crystalline structure resonating with anxiety. "We prefer to call them wildlife management practices," Winters interjected smoothly. And yes, you'll observe how humans safely coexist with Earth's native species. The delegation huddled together, their protective suits clinking softly as they conferred in their musical language. Finally, VYX turned back to address the group. "We are prepared to proceed with the observation mission," they announced formally. "However, we must insist on maintaining our emergency teleportation capabilities. The footage we reviewed of your honey badger has left us concerned." Rodriguez shot Winters a questioning look, but she shook her head slightly. Some questions were better left unasked. As they led the delegation toward the modified Toyota, Thompson fell into step beside Winters. "So, what's our actual plan here?" she whispered. "Show them enough to satisfy their curiosity, but not so much that they declare Earth a death world and quarantine our entire solar system," Winters whispered back. "And hope we don't run into any Wolverines. They've developed a particular fixation on those." They reached the vehicle, its newly enhanced exterior gleaming with an otherworldly sheen. The crystalline delegates insisted on scanning it for structural integrity, their devices emitting musical tones that had every dog in the ranger station howling in response. As Rodriguez helped the delegates aboard, each movement careful and measured to avoid triggering any panic, he couldn't help but wonder how humanity's first major diplomatic mission had come down to convincing space crystals that they weren't secretly commanding an army of woodland creatures. The sun climbed higher over Yellowstone, promising a beautiful day for wildlife observation. Whether that was a good thing or not remained to be seen. Somewhere in the park, Earth's wildlife went about their daily routines, blissfully unaware that they were about to become the focus of an interstellar diplomatic incident. Into the wild. The modified Toyota crawled along Yellowstone's main road at what might have been the slowest wildlife tour in the park's history. Inside the vehicle, Ambassador Winters tried to maintain her diplomatic composure while Superior Nexus VYX analyzed every moving object through their crystalline sensors, treating each squirrel like a potential tactical threat. "That small furry entity just buried something in the ground," Junior Nexus Zora observed, their protective suit humming with concern. "Is it planting explosive devices?" Ranger Thompson, who had drawn the short straw to serve as their driver, kept her eyes firmly on the road. "That's just a ground squirrel storing food for winter," she explained, carefully avoiding any mention of terms like survival or predation that might trigger another crystalline panic attack. "Ah, yes," VYX chimed in, their structure shifting to a scholarly purple hue. "Stockpiling resources for the harsh season. A sound military strategy." Winters and Thompson exchanged a glance through the rearview mirror but said nothing. They had learned it was easier to let some assumptions slide. The morning had progressed without major incident, mainly because they had managed to avoid any significant wildlife encounters. A distant herd of bison had caused some concern until Winters convinced the delegation they were ceremonial grazers, rather than the armored assault units the crystallines initially assumed them to be. "There appears to be movement in the vegetation approximately 47 meters ahead," one of the junior delegates announced, their scanning equipment producing a series of melodic warning tones. Thompson slowed the vehicle even further, if that was possible. Through the reinforced windshield, they could see a moose emerging from the tree-line, casually browsing on willow branches. "Fascinating," VYX observed, their crystalline form refracting sunlight in patterns that suggested intense concentration. "This specimen appears to be equipped with natural defensive protrusions. Are they used for close-quarter combat?" "Those are antlers," Winters explained carefully. "They're mainly used for..." She paused, searching for the least threatening explanation: social interactions. "Social combat rituals," Zora translated confidently, making notes in their crystalline database. "Similar to your species' diplomatic protocols." Before Winters could correct this increasingly problematic interpretation, Thompson suddenly stiffened in her seat. "Movement on the right," she said quietly. Everyone remained calm. The crystalline delegation's protective suits whirred as they turned in perfect synchronization. Through the reinforced windows, they watched as a dark, muscular form emerged from the underbrush. The Wolverine moved with purposeful grace, completely unaware of the interstellar incident it was about to trigger. Is that? Zora's voice modulator crackled with recognition. Everyone stay calm, Winters repeated, but it was too late. Wolverine. The collective cry from the delegation created a harmonic resonance that made the vehicle's enhanced windows vibrate. Their crystalline forms shifted through a rainbow of panic colors, settling on a unified shade of alarmed magenta. The ultimate biological weapon. VYX declared, their protective suit engaging additional shielding layers. Observer Pix's research indicated these entities possess strength disproportionate to their size and demonstrate tactical aggression beyond normal parameters. The Wolverine, oblivious to the chaos it was causing, simply continued about its business, turning over rocks in search of food. Its casual display of strength as it effortlessly flipped heavy stones did nothing to calm the delegation. Did you see that? Zora's voice had risen several octaves. It manipulates objects many times its mass. The power-to-size ratio defies our understanding of biological limitations. It's really not that remarkable, Thompson tried to interject, immediately realizing her mistake. Not remarkable. VYX's crystalline structure vibrated with what might have been incredulity. Your species has normalized coexistence with entities capable of such feats. This confirms our theories about human evolutionary adaptations. The Wolverine chose that moment to look up, its natural expression of mild irritation sending the delegation into another panic spiral. 3 of the junior delegates activated their emergency shields, creating a crystalline barrier that nearly crushed the vehicle's enhanced roof. Perhaps we should proceed to another observation point, Winters suggested diplomatically, wondering if her career would survive a report that included the phrase, diplomatic incident caused by mustelid. Negative, VYX declared, their voice carrying the weight of official proclamation. The crystalline collective must document this encounter for our xenobiological database. The existence of such beings on your planet explains many aspects of human behavior that previously puzzled us. It really doesn't, Thompson muttered under her breath, but the delegation was too engrossed in their observation to notice. For the next 20 minutes, they watched as the Wolverine went about its ordinary routine, each mundane action generating new theories from the delegation about human evolutionary responses and theoretical defensive capabilities. By the time the creature wandered back into the underbrush, the crystallines had somehow concluded that all humans must possess enhanced strength, accelerated healing, and possibly psychic abilities to survive in such an environment. I believe we have gathered sufficient data for preliminary analysis, VYX announced finally, their color settling into a thoughtful blue. Though we must revise our initial assessment of Earth's classification. Clearly, we are dealing with a level 4 death world scenario. A what? Thompson and Winters asked simultaneously. A planet where the indigenous life forms have evolved extreme survival capabilities, Zora explained helpfully. It explains how your species achieved spaceflight. You had to develop advanced technology just to survive your own wildlife. As they drove back to the ranger station, Winters found herself wondering how exactly she would explain in her diplomatic report that Earth's status in the galactic community had been significantly elevated because a Wolverine decided to flip some rocks over. Somewhere in the vast bureaucracy of interstellar relations, she suspected there wasn't a standard form for that. Understanding and adaptation. The Yellowstone Ranger Station's conference room had been hastily converted into what Superior Nexus VYX termed a strategic analysis center. Holographic displays projected by the crystalline delegation's equipment filled the air with shifting images of Earth's wildlife, connected by glowing lines that supposedly represented ecological relationships but looked more like battle plans. Ambassador Winters watched as Ranger Thompson tried to explain, for the third time, that squirrels weren't actually conducting surveillance operations when they gathered nuts. The delegation had spent the entire evening analyzing their observations, reaching increasingly elaborate conclusions about Earth's military-grade ecosystem. So you maintain, VYX commented, their crystalline structure pulsing with scholarly interest, that these creatures developed these capabilities through natural selection rather than deliberate engineering? Exactly. Thomson seized on this moment of potential understanding. Each species evolved to fill its ecological niche, developing the traits needed to wage more effective territorial warfare. Junior Nexus Zora interrupted, their voice modulator vibrating with excitement. The evolutionary arms race must have been extraordinary. No wonder humans developed such remarkable resilience. Winter suppressed a sigh. They were somehow making progress and moving backward simultaneously. Chief Ranger Rodriguez, who had been quietly observing from the corner, finally spoke up. Maybe we're approaching this the wrong way, he suggested, moving to the central holographic display. Instead of trying to explain our ecosystem, perhaps we should show them how we actually interact with it. The crystalline delegation's protective suits whirred with interest. You would demonstrate your wildlife command protocols? VYX asked, their color shifting to an intrigued shade of turquoise. Not exactly, Rodriguez said carefully. But we could show you our wildlife research programs. How we study and understand these creatures rather than trying to control them. The delegation conferred in their musical language, creating a symphony that made the coffee maker malfunction. Finally, VYX turned back to the humans. The collective finds this proposal acceptable, they announced. Though we must insist on maintaining our protective measures. The incident with the ground squirrel this afternoon was unsettling. Thomson managed to turn her laugh into a convincing cough. The incident had consisted of a squirrel suddenly darting across their path, causing 3 delegates to activate their emergency teleporters and briefly materialize in the ranger station's kitchen. The next morning found them at one of the park's research stations, where wildlife biologist Dr. Raj Patel had been hastily briefed on the situation. He took the presence of crystalline aliens in stride, though he did blink several times when their protective suits automatically deployed additional shielding in response to a passing chipmunk. Currently, we're studying wolf pack dynamics, Patel explained, pulling up footage from wildlife cameras. These cameras let us observe their natural behaviors without surveillance devices. Zora chimed excitedly. You monitor your biological weapons remotely. They're not weapons, Patel corrected patiently. They're intelligent social animals with complex family structures. Look at this footage of the pack caring for their pups. The delegation watched in silence as the video showed wolf pups playing while adults took turns watching over them. Their crystalline forms shifted through thoughtful colors. This appears to be a training protocol, VYX observed, though their tone held a note of uncertainty. It's play, Winters explained softly. They're learning, yes, but they're also just being what they are, living creatures sharing our world. Something in her words seemed to resonate with the crystallines. Their protective suits powered down slightly, the constant whir of defensive systems quieting for the first time since their arrival. Your species, VYX said slowly, you don't view Earth's wildlife as weapons or threats to be controlled. You see them as cohabitants. Yes. Thomson jumped in. That's what we've been trying to explain. We respect these creatures, study them, protect them even, but we don't control them. They're part of what makes Earth what it is. The delegation's colors shifted through a series of rapid changes before settling into a harmonious pattern none of the humans had seen before. Perhaps, Zora suggested tentatively, we should revise our initial assessment again. Not a death world, but a world of extraordinary complexity and adaptation. A world where multiple species have evolved together, Patel added, each finding their own way to survive and thrive. Including humans, Rodriguez said. We didn't conquer Earth's wildlife, we learned to understand it, to coexist with it, to appreciate its importance to our planet's health. The crystallines' musical conference this time was softer, almost melodic. When they finished, VYX approached Winters with formal dignity. Ambassador, the collective wishes to propose a modification to our diplomatic approach, they announced. Rather than focusing on perceived military applications, we would like to learn more about how your species achieved this remarkable balance with your world's other inhabitants. As if to punctuate this moment of understanding, a wolf's howl echoed across the valley. The delegation's protective suits buzzed briefly but didn't activate their shields. Instead, the crystallines turned to watch as the morning sun illuminated the landscape, seeing it perhaps for the first time not as a battlefield, but as a complex web of life they had only begun to understand. Bridge between worlds. 1 month after the memorable wildlife observation mission, Ambassador Winters stood in the International Space Station's newly redesigned conference room. The crystalline delegation had insisted on modifying it to include a massive observation window overlooking Earth. Superior Nexus VYX stood beside her, their protective suit now noticeably slimmer and featuring what appeared to be decorative etchings of various Earth animals. "Your world continues to surprise us," VYX commented, their crystalline structure reflecting the blue and green hues of the planet below. "When we first arrived, we thought we had encountered a military society that had conquered its hostile environment. Instead, we discovered something far more remarkable." Winters smiled, remembering the journey that had brought them to this point. A change in perspective can reveal new truths. Though I must admit, I never expected a Wolverine to become the catalyst for interstellar understanding. The door chimed musically as Junior Nexus Zora entered, carrying a holographic display showing live feeds from various wildlife cameras across Earth's national parks. The Crystalline Collective had helped upgrade the monitoring systems as part of their new scientific exchange program, though they still insisted on including emergency teleporters, just in case. "The data from the Yellowstone Research Station is fascinating," Zora announced, their voice modulator conveying genuine excitement. "Dr. Patel's team has documented 17 distinct wolf pack social interactions we never imagined possible in non-crystalline life forms." The display shifted to show a pack of wolves cooperatively hunting, their movements coordinated with an efficiency that had initially convinced the crystallines they must be receiving tactical commands from human controllers. Now, the delegation watched with scientific appreciation rather than military assessment. "We've received the collective's proposal for the Joint Research Initiative," Winters said, pulling up the document on her tablet. "Though I have to admit, some of the terms are unexpected. The collective believes we have much to learn from Earth's ecosystem," VYX explained, their color shifting to what Winters had come to recognize as their diplomatic hue. "Our own world's evolution took a very different path. Understanding how your species achieved harmony with such diverse life forms could help us expand our own perspectives." "By harmony, you mean our ability to survive without crystalline armor and emergency teleporters?" Winters couldn't resist asking. VYX's structure flickered in what might have been embarrassment. "We may have been overly cautious in our initial approach. Though I maintain that our reaction to the honey badger footage was entirely reasonable." The station's main screen activated, showing Chief Ranger Rodriguez and his team at Yellowstone. The park had been selected as the site for the first joint human crystalline wildlife research center, though convincing the crystallines to call it that instead of their preferred terrestrial combat biology analysis facility had taken considerable diplomatic effort. "The first group of crystalline scientists arrives next week," Rodriguez reported, looking both amused and slightly concerned. "We've prepared the modified observation facilities according to their specifications, though I'm still not sure why they needed quantum-reinforced windows in the bird-watching stations." "Better safe than sorry," Zora chimed in, their structure briefly flickering at the mention of birds. "Some traumas took time to overcome." The view screen shifted to show construction progress on the research center. Its architecture blended human and crystalline design elements, creating a structure that somehow managed to look both Earth-inspired and alien. Solar panels shaped like crystal formations captured energy while providing roosting spots for local birds, much to the ongoing nervousness of the crystalline engineering team. The collective has also approved funding for similar research centers in other Earth biomes, VYX announced. "We are particularly interested in your Australian continent, though our preliminary research has caused some concern among our more conservative council members." Perhaps we should save Australia for Phase 2, Winters suggested quickly. The universe might not be ready for the crystallines' reaction to platypuses just yet. As they discussed future plans, a notification appeared on the wildlife feeds. The Wolverine that had inadvertently sparked this interstellar partnership had been spotted near one of the research cameras. The crystalline delegation watched with newfound appreciation as the muscular predator efficiently dug up cached food. To think we once believed these creatures were tactical units under human control, Zora mused. The reality is far more impressive, a planet where countless species have evolved together, each finding their own path to survival. A path we hope to understand better through cooperation with humanity, VYX added. Though we will maintain reasonable safety protocols. We've reviewed footage of your mosquitoes and believe some concern is justified. Winters turned from the window to face the delegation. So the Crystalline Collective is officially modifying its assessment of Earth? Indeed, VYX confirmed, their structure shifting through colors that suggested both formality and warmth. Earth is hereby reclassified from potential death world to planet of extraordinary biological diversity and evolutionary innovation. Though we're keeping the warning label about the honey badgers. Some things are simply universal constants. As they finalized the details of their new partnership, Winters reflected on how far they'd come from that first panicked viewing of a nature documentary. The road ahead would undoubtedly have its challenges. She still hadn't figured out how to explain cats to them, but humanity's first major interstellar collaboration had taken an unexpected yet promising turn. Somewhere below, Earth's wildlife continued their daily routines, unaware that they had become the foundation for a bridge between worlds. And in the vast bureaucracy of interstellar relations, a new classification was added to the official records, Earth, home of the Wolverine, where nature's complexity had taught even crystalline beings to see the universe in a new light.